This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, well, welcome to the October Planetarian Zoom seminar. And today we are honored to have John Erickson, who was the former planetarium director and a curriculum developer at the Lawrence Hall of Science at University of California, Berkeley. And he's leading us in this seminar entitled Pointerology. Before I turn it over to him, I just want to mention that you can, we do have our usual sign-in sheet, which you can, it's otherwise known as the chat. So you can put your name and where you're from there as a sign-in. And I just put mine in as an example. And as usual, if there's noise, if you're in a noisy environment, make sure you're on mute, or it's a good idea to be on mute anyway. But I know that John is somebody who invites questions and likes interaction, so make sure to remember to unmute. And of course, we're recording this, so it's for posterity, and you can say whatever you want within those limits. Okay, John.
All right, thanks, Alan. And if I don't notice anyone waving a hand or putting a question in the chat or something, Alan, can you kind of monitor that?
Yes, I will.
But I will just say unmute and chime in if the time seems right for that. All right. Yeah, I've been doing curriculum development and planetarium programming and overall direction, but I really just like fiddling with gadgets and making things and putting stuff together. And since I use pointers every time I use a planetarium, I always think, gosh, this pointer is pretty good, but it could be better. And that's been true with just about every pointer I've used. So I thought, why not just make the perfect pointer? And the Pacific Planetarium Association awarded a mini grant so that I could buy stuff and make prototypes, which are in use and work pretty well. So this is partly about that pointer that I developed, but about pointers in general and how they work and why we like them and what we wish were different about them. So instead of sharing my screen, I thought I would sort of flex my OBS muscles, which haven't had a lot of training yet. So if you can read me in the little box, that's okay, or you can pin me to make me big, either one. But we'll start off with different pointers, how they work, the pros and cons. And I've got a gallery of pointers, some with me here. But I'm hoping some of you brought some pointers that you can show off and tell why you like them or don't like them. I know at least one of you does. Then I want to share some tips for using pointers. You know, what do we do that works? What problems have we solved? And then there's the pointer that I developed that I have instructions on the PPA website, so you can build it. It's called a new pointer on the block. And with that, I use some of the same electronics and things to make a few other products, which I'm also going to put instructions for. I haven't yet on the PPA website. And then anything else we want to say about pointers, we'll get to say them. So any comments about the agenda before we go forward?
I just wanted to ask a quick question out of ignorance. I'm not a member of PPA. Can I still get on the website and get access to this information?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
Probably you can do an internet search or do www.ppadomes.org.
Yeah.
Maybe Alan can put that in the chat.
That's good. Thanks.
And the pointer stuff is under resources. And
okay.
I plan to polish it and update it, but it's there now and it works now. It's a little unwieldy. All right. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Well, I'll start my pointer survey with the old classic pointers. I don't know how many of you had a machine in the middle of your room, an optical projector with a wired pointer. This is a collection of such pointers from the, the Planetarium Projector and Science Museum run by Owen Ferris. And the second pointer from the left here is actually the pointer that people at Lawrence Hall of Science used for a long time, but now it's a museum piece, which is one of the disadvantages of this pointer. But the advantage of these old style pointers is that they were really crisp and bright. The pointer arrow outline was stamped from metal, and it was a nice shape and had clean edges, really good pointer. So crisp edges, the arrow was a nice shape, no battery because it was tethered to a wire. And it has what I call total projector optics. In a perfect projector, you've got your light source here. You have a condenser lens or a set of lenses that condense it, that actually focus the light point on the projection lens. And I remember using this old pointer when the lens was a little dirty. I could see a little projection of the filament of the light bulb inside right on the projection lens. And the reason that's good is it guarantees that the slide, which is a piece of metal with an arrow stamped out of it, is illuminated evenly, so that the image looks really good. So with the deluxe total projection optics, you get a really good image, and you can use finger dimming, which I will tell you about later, but you can use in your imagination, think about what finger dimming might be. So the obvious backdrops are their museum pieces. No one's using them anymore. And when we were using them, they were tethered by the electric cord, so you couldn't pass them around among the participants in your planetarium show. Any comments about old classic pointers before we go to the next one? The next one is one I'm very fond of. It may be a little tricky to see in this picture, but this filament of this light bulb is actually V-shaped. So there's no arrow cutout. The filament of the light bulb itself is the arrow. I think you can see it a little better in this picture. And this is a photo of the projection of it. And it can be super bright, which is good and it is bad. But you can use finger dimming on it. It works really well, and it's a very simple and clever design. Of course, the cons are these bulbs are now very hard to find. Last time I was at a LIPS conference, someone had a pointer like this, and everyone said, "Ooh, that's really cool and clever." And I thought, "Ooh, that's going to be a museum piece very soon as that light bulb burns out." The arrow shape is a V, which I think is the disadvantage because people aren't sure how to use it. In my experience using these, some people put the point of the arrow at the thing they're pointing at, and you hand it to someone in the audience, and they point out a star by putting it in the jaws of the Pac-Man mouth here and think, this is clever. I can kind of outline what I'm pointing at. And it's probably not a big deal, but it bothers me when people are interpreting the meaning of the pointer in different ways, and I wonder if that's leading anyone astray. And goes out of focus easily. I don't think that's a necessary condition of this kind of pointers, but the particular ones I used did go out of focus easily. And before and during every show, you had to twist the lens and get it right. So I have fond memories of this pointer, but I can't find them anymore, so I can't show you one live. Any comments about this one before we go to the next one? When I put out a message on Dome-L saying, what's your favorite pointer and what do you like about them? A lot of you indicated the arrow pointer from Ash Enterprises, and that's not a museum piece. I've got one here. And I can show you how it projects. It's pretty cool. I'm going to turn on a remote camera that's about 8 feet away from me across the wall. I'll lift up the green screen. I can't do it close because most pointers have to have a long throw in order to do their thing. But I've got a piece of paper on the wall behind me, and that's what my remote camera is centered on. And this pointer makes a pretty nice arrow shape. It's not a V shape. It's actually kind of, well, rather cleverly designed. You can twist the front of it and the arrow gets a little smaller and brighter. Twist it again, a little smaller and brighter. Twist it again, and you've got a dot shape. So this pointer is pretty versatile. I don't like dot shapes because usually you're pointing out stars, and pointing out a dot with a dot, to me and to other people whose comments I've collected, is just weird. So good thing about this one is you can adjust it to different sizes, and pretty cool. Let's turn off that camera for now. So the pros of this one is it's a nice arrow projection. It can be a dot or an arrow of 3 different sizes. It's always in focus, and it's just a clever design. This is sort of the inside of any laser diode. And the secret that a lot of people don't know is a laser diode, or any solid state laser, or at least this kind of solid state laser, doesn't make a beam. It makes a fan of light in an oval that's usually about 3 times as high as it is wide. And in your standard laser pointer, there's either a lens or 2 lenses in it that focus it to a dot. So it's not the laser itself that's making a straight beam, it's the laser and those columnating lenses. But if you don't focus it to a dot, you can put an arrow cutout, and looking inside the barrel of the laser, I took a picture, you can actually see the arrow cutout there. So it's a pretty clever design. And there is a lens in it somewhere between the arrow cutout and the laser diode. And that lens can move to change the size of the arrow or to focus it into a dot shape like most laser pointers. So that's, I like it just because it's clever. But it's a laser, so handing it to an audience member, a lot of kids, the first thing they do when you hand them a pointer is look down the barrel, hey, this is neat, and point it into their own face. Or they might accidentally point it into another person's face. This is a low power laser, and when it's not focused to a point, it's really not going to damage anyone's eyes, but the perception of unsafety is real. And if it is pointed to a focus to a dot, it could damage someone's eyes. So that's a major drawback with this. It's generally for the presenter's use. If you do have a responsible participant who's an adult in the audience and want to pass it to them so they can point to what they see, it has a momentary contact switch. So you can't point it to them in the on position. You have to show them in the dark where to press, which is awkward. So I don't prefer momentary contact switches in my planetarium pointers. It's also compact, which means when I set it down in the dark, someone like me is apt to misplace it. It's also round, so it might roll a little bit. And you cannot do finger dimming with this. And again, I'll get back to finger dimming in a little bit. Any questions about laser pointers or things to say before we go to the next one? So in the past few years, since LEDs have become brighter and beefier, people have been adapting mag lights to become laser pointers. And this is one from Digitalis that they call their child-safe laser light or LED light pointer, because it's not a laser. You can pass it to anyone, and if they shine it into their own face, it's not going to do them any harm. So that's the number one pro, safe light source. It's rugged and easy to hold because that's the way Maglite makes their lights. It's adjustable focus. And I guess a lot of Digitalis users work in small domes, but you can use it in a big dome. And you have to be able to change the focus sometimes if you're in domes of different sizes and you're closer or farther away from the surface you're pointering onto. And finger dimming works really well with this one. Inside it, this is a close-up of the pointer with its top screwed off, is a bright white LED with a little arrow cutout mask over it. But it is very little. So let me turn on my camera and show you what it looks like when it's focused on the wall. There it is. It's just a few centimeters across with a throw of 8 feet. And again, it's a V shape. So some people might point with the point of the V, and some people might put whatever you're pointing to within the jaws of the Pac-Man mouth. So that's one of my pet peeves. So that's one of the cons I had listed is it's a small arrow projection and it's a V shape. The button is on the back end, which means when you're holding it, maybe you need to use your other hand to turn it on or off or do gymnastics with your thumb. It's just inconveniently placed. And the focus is not fixed. I put that as an advantage at the top because it works in different size domes, but it's also a pain compared to the laser pointer, which is always in focus. Anything to say about this sort of pointer before we go on?
John, I have not used it. I did inquire about it some time ago, and Carrie at Digitalis indicated that for our dome, which is like a 68-foot diameter dome, she thought it would be underpowered. I don't know if that anybody else has experience with it or not.
I agree with you. There is a fix. Inside, there's hold this close to I took this out of the inside of it. It's sort of stops down the light so that it's not too bright. I actually took it out and replaced it with some washers with a bigger hole in them. And that made it brighter. It also made a very slight cloudiness around it, which is probably another reason why they stop it down so much and make it so dim. I always feel like you should have a dim pointer available to you because when you point to the Pleiades with a bright pointer, people see your pointer and they know where you're pointing, but they can't see what you're pointing at because it's something very dim on your dome. So yeah, I'll agree that you can make this brighter with a simple fix, but it's still not tremendously bright. And it's small, and myself and people I've asked on Domel has given me the feedback that they like a large pointer that people have no trouble finding when you're using it. You might notice when I do a presentation, can you see my point? Oh, my pointer isn't. Oh yeah, there it is. I always make my pointer big because a lot of people share their screen and they have itty bitty pointers and they use them to point out what's ever on their screen. And I have trouble following it. But in most laptops, you can go to the accessibility section and make your pointer big. So there's a non-planetarium pointer tip. Make your pointer bigger if you're sharing your screen and using your pointer to point things out on your screen. All right. My next pointer in the pointer gallery is in the category of homemade pointers. This is one I made because I was sick of batteries. And this is an ever-ready rechargeable flashlight. You pick up this switch and tines come out, so you can just plug it into your AC outlet in the wall and charge it up. And then you can retract the tines to use it in your planetarium. But it is just a flashlight. So I made a little arrow cutout and put it inside. And I have taken some PVC plumbing parts to hold a lens in place. I had to drill a hole in the end cap of the PVC plumbing. So the lens is there. And I put it on a piece of PVC pipe that I cut to the right distance so it would be in focus. So let me turn on my remote camera here, lift up my green screen and point to the wall behind me. This one's not tremendously bright. I wonder if it needs recharging, but wave if you can see it there on the wall. Yeah, okay, good. It's brighter in a dark room. And the V shape I made, I used the 3-piece of tape method. And maybe some of you have done that before. I'll turn off that camera. You take a disc or a piece of plastic or a washer or something and put tape on one side and put tape on the other side and put tape at the bottom, and you get a nice little arrow shape. And if you make it perfectly symmetrical, then it's like the logo for the US Space Force. It's hard to make it perfectly symmetrical, but if you get the bottom part off center, then it's like the logo for the Starfleet Federation of Planets, which some people may think is even cooler. Can anyone raise a hand or wave it if they've made an arrow like this before in a pointer? Jeff Nee is putting his thumb up. Yeah, I think I've seen some of his pointers that had this. I don't remember if we thought of it independently or if I saw Jeff's and said, oh, I could do it that way.
I thought I got it from you.
Pointer, oh, you got it from me. Okay. So this is one example of a homemade pointer. Its advantages is it's a safe LED light source. It's plug-in rechargeable. It's nice and bright, although, as I said, I think mine needs recharging because it didn't look as bright as it should have. Finger dimming works well on mine. And when I was talking about developing a really slick pointer that you could make with a 3D printer, I got feedback saying the ones that look kind of homemade, people in the planetarium say, that's cool. I wonder if I could make something like that. So having a homemade one with a little bit of tape on it could be a little inspiring. The only con I can think of this particular one is the switch on this flashlight is a little bit sticky, and sometimes I have to struggle a bit to turn it on and off. But once it's on, it works great. And when I think about this one, I wonder why I went to all the trouble to develop a new one, because I like this one so much. But I also like the new one, which I'm going to show you in a little bit. But this might be a good time for a little show and tell about, from any of you who have brought a pointer that you've made or you like that's like one of the ones I've shown or a different one. And I know Jeff brought one. So can we start with you, Jeff?
Sure. So I have mine right here. What's different from mine than yours is that I was able to find, they're called zoomable flashlights. So they actually come with a lens. And you're actually allowed to, you're able to change the focus and make it's supposed to be like if you want a wider beam of light to illuminate a room, or if you want to focus a more focused beam of light to illuminate a specific spot, like a spotlight. So they sell those. And this one, I got it at a dollar store. It cost $1.50. So not literally a dollar store, but $1.50. Add in a penny for the tape. And you have a $1.50 pointer that works really well in my small dome. And of course, you can buy these zoomable lenses. You know, you can buy a really, really nice one if you have like a really large dome and you want something really bright and sturdy. This one, but I really like this one. So, like you said, I don't like that the switch is on the bottom, but this one's so short that I can still operate it and turn it on with one hand if I have to. And I do have some pictures. Let me just throw that in the chat. There you go. I made a little gallery of how I made it.
Oh.
And I went with the Starfleet logo.
Could you send that to me so I can put that on the PPA website eventually?
Yeah, and I'll email it to you later. But it's in the chat if anybody wants to take a look at the pictures.
All right. Do you have any way of showing us what the projected arrow looks like?
Not here, but it is in the
right.
pictures. So let me so I wonder if you can you click on it and put it on your screen?
Click on on the
in the chat. Maybe I can click.
Yeah, I see it on John. Yeah.
It's showing up now? Oh, that was easy.
Very
Yay,
good.
OBS. Okay, so that's my pointer.
And just click on one of the images. Maybe one of the ones on the bottom.
Why doesn't Alan just give you permission to share, Jeff?
I think
that might prove better because this isn't working out for me.
Okay, let me try that. I didn't want to steal it from John.
While you're working on that, is there anyone else? Oh,
there it is.
How's that? So that's what it looks like.
That okay, the Starfleet command.
And again, so mine, because it's adjustable, you can zoom it to different focal lengths. But I taped mine because I just have the one dome. I don't have multiple domes, so I just taped it in the position that I needed it. And then if you want to take a look, I don't think you can see the triangle that I made, but there it is.
With
it's a little bit washed out, but yeah, 3 pieces of tape.
Electrical tape?
Electrical tape, yeah.
All right.
It blocks out. It makes a nicer edge. And I didn't have aluminum tape at the moment.
The aluminum tape has a good edge too.
Yeah, it does. But I didn't have it on hand, and I was just literally grabbing whatever I had. So I really like this one because it cost almost nothing, and it was super easy to make. The only tricky thing was that the lens that they include is usually not positioned in a place to make the arrow, so I did have to put in some spacers. But that was just literally a couple pieces of tape and some cardboard, if you really needed it. But mine was just a little bit off, so I just taped it in the place where it's supposed to be.
All right. Thanks,
Jeff.
And
there it is. Yeah.
There it is. Anyone else have a favorite pointer they want to show off?
Actually, I might mention, I don't have one to show, but I have one comment and one thing to mention about the switch being difficult to, a lot of pointers have switches that are difficult. And I think for those of us who have used pointers where we hand it out to audience members, kids and whoever, to point out things in the sky, you usually turn it on yourself and then they don't rely on them to turn it on. That's something that you learn very fast.
Correct.
Don't rely on them to turn it on.
Which is why the momentary switches are a pain in the neck.
But what I would like
to put a rubber band around them or something.
Years ago, there was a gentleman by the name of John French, who created a do-it-yourself pointer, and I was looking for it. I thought it was posted online, but all the places that I looked for didn't have it. But I do have it in my computer. So let me share my screen and just briefly show that the thing from John French. It's let's see. Now everybody's seeing my screen. I hope there's nothing. Okay, here's his pointer. And he has full instructions on how to do it. And it's kind of, it says LED pointers made easy, but it's not that easy, but it's not undoable. But this is the pointer that he made with LED and mask. Now I don't know if he used the 3-tape method for making
It looks like something very similar.
Yeah, it looks like he did use the 3-tape method. And it looks like it's a mag light. Actually, it looks like it's an LED mag light. So these are instructions that had been posted by Glippa. But I can't find it. So we might, if I track it down, maybe I can give it to you, John, and we can put that up as another example.
One problem with adapting commercial lights is the Maglite people keep changing their designs. So the LED has gone from one kind to another, or the switch on a Maglite used to be turning the thingy on and off, and now they've added a switch here. So once you explain how to change this into a pointer, and then the one you buy changes, the directions become a little out of date. If there are no more pointers from the world, let's go to how we use pointers and pointer techniques. And I mentioned a few times finger dimming. Has anyone figured out what I mean by that?
Cover part.
Jeff thinks he knows. Well, let's see if Jeff's right. I'm going to, whoops. I'm going
Go
to
ahead, Richard, you were saying something?
I'm turning on the digitalis pointer, and I can hold it with my finger over the front. And let me shine it on the wall behind me again. It's pretty bright there, but if I eclipse the lens with my finger, I can make it dimmer. So I can guide people to the Pleiades, say, and then when I get there, I can just put my finger over half the lens and the image dims down to however dim I want it, from completely off to all the way bright. So your adjustable brightness on a pointer that's good for finger dimmer is just your finger going over the top or not over the top. And then now and then you have to clean the lens if you've actually been touching the lens with your finger. The laser, however, has a point source. And if I shine it on the wall behind me and finger dimmer it, instead of dimming the image, it just blocks out part of the pointer image. So no finger dimming here. So finger dimming is a way I've been controlling pointers for a long time. I don't know how it works on yours, Jeff. On most of them that have a small LED light source, it doesn't work that well.
Yeah, because mine's a zoomable, it does finger dim, yeah.
Oh, nice. I'll turn this over. So finger dimming is one technique I like. Wiggling and bouncing as you move. Let's go to a slide that has a star field on it, and maybe you recognize 7 bright stars that look like a cup with a long handle. And I can guide you around here with my pointer. Is my pointer showing up? Oh, no, that's because I'm doing it on my OBS window instead of on the, okay. 7 bright stars like a cup with a long handle. And if I follow the handle around, if I go too fast over here, it's tempting to get there quickly, but moving too fast, people don't follow the pointer well. And even moving in a straight line, people zone out during the second and a half it might take. So I do kind of wiggling and bouncing when I go from here to here to here to here, or from the pointer stars from here to here to here to here. And that's a text box. So my cursor changed from a, there we go. So bounce, 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 bounce. Next time you're in a planetarium with your pointer, try going straight and try bouncing and wiggling as you go. There's a lot of research saying the eye sort of tunes in on things that are wiggling more easily than things that are static. So there's two techniques I like when I'm pointering. Finger dimming, if my pointer allows for it, and wiggling and bouncing as I move it from place to place if I want people to follow it from one star to another. And I'm hoping that some of you have some favorite ways you use pointers that maybe other people would appreciate because they've been doing it, or maybe they would appreciate because they've never thought of it before.
One tip that I would share is wait time. Just like if you're asking a question, you got to have a proper wait time if you want to engage people. So before you actually say if you're doing the going to Arcturus, I started the Big Dipper handle. I point in the direction that I'm talking about, but before I move, I have some sort of wait time and saying, "Can you find the bright star that I'm going to go to?" So before I actually move to Arcturus, I just point in the direction, have them see if they can find it first before I outright show them.
I use a technique when pointing out something on the dome. People don't know where that arrow is going to be. So if you're looking for something, say, in the current evening sky, you want to point out Aldebaran in the east, I don't go right to Aldebaran. I start over in the west, down by the horizon, and I make a slow arc across the sky so they can follow the arrow until I get to Aldebaran on the opposite side of the dome. So whatever I'm pointing out, I usually start on the opposite side of the dome and do that kind of thing with it, where you kind of make a little sailing arrow to get them there. That way that you don't lose them. And of course, you talk it through very slowly and guiding, like you were saying, Jeff, about telling them what you're going to do and whether they can find it. But I'll look off and then give them a compass direction. Look off toward the east. That's over to your left, and here comes the arrow. Starting out fresh with kids, I'll always start at the top of the dome. When I want to point something out, I'll say, look up at the top of the dome. Do you see that red arrow up there? That's my laser. I can move that around and get right to the thing. Oh, by the way, and I don't know if you covered this already, I'm sorry, but I really like the laser arrows that Ash Enterprises makes available to people. It's like about $40 or so, and those are nice and bright, and they give a really good image for a laser. And those you can see those with a blue dome, so I like those a lot.
Thank you. Any other pointer tips?
Long time ago, before there were well, there were meteor shower special effects, but if I just wanted to have one meteor, I would make it with my, if it's a white pointer, a white light pointer, I would make a meteor with the pointer just by making.
It works so well with a red or a green. All right.
Yeah, that works just with a white pointer. But nowadays it's like you can have digital meteors.
Yeah.
Galore. Yeah.
And I suppose one more thing that I would say, if you're doing really little kids and you want to give them the pointer, I usually give them a few seconds to just, get their wiggles out, because they just love waving the pointer around, which is great. I think it's really fun. It's legitimately very fun. I think. And so before I ask them to actually do something with the pointer, I usually let them take like literally like 5 seconds and just let them do whatever they want with the pointer, before I actually get into the meat and potatoes of what I want them to do with it.
Great. Anything else? All right. Let's go to what I'm not sure what it is, but since it was developed with the help of a PPA mini grant, I'll call it a PPA pointer. And I've got one here, and I just want to show you some of the rationale and how it's put together and some of the things I learned along the way. Features, it is an LED light source, not a laser, so you can pass it around. And its switch has two positions, so it's got a bright setting for daytime sky or pointing to a bright image, and a dimmer setting for pointing out the Pleiades or almost any night sky thing when it's dark. You can get away with a dimmer setting and it's more effective. Or you can point to something with the bright setting, and then when you get there, you can turn it to the dim setting so that people can see more easily. The 3D printing body is sturdy and lightweight, sort of a comfortable shape, and doesn't roll when you set it down. Doesn't go out of focus. It's a fixed focus, which means you might have to decide whether you're going to fix it for a small dome where you're close to the surface or a big dome where you're farther away. It has a Type-C USB port in it that you can plug into any USB charger and charge it up, rechargeable battery. And you can choose the color by choosing the LED you want to put in it. And the projection, it can either be arrow-shaped, like the Star Trek logo with the 3-tape thing, but I've also got templates that you can cut with a laser cutter in case you want to cut out your own arrow, or you can use a graphics program and make your own arrow and use a laser cutter. I think the laser cut ones are pretty cool because they can be shaped like any kind of arrow you want. But I also think the 3 pieces of tape works pretty well too. And I guess I'll show how this one's working. This is, I printed with a red body and it has a red LED inside. So I'll turn on my camera across the room. It's the brighter setting and the dimmer setting. And we can compare that to the ash one. See, it's on the dimmer setting there. There we go. The ash one's quite a bit brighter. But the one I have is quite a bit bigger, so it catches people's eyes. And as I've noted before, a few people have remarked to me that they wish the arrow in their pointer was bigger. But you can actually make whatever size arrow you want when you put this together. Here's one that's, oh dear, it's green. So my green screen is making it disappear. I didn't think of that ahead of time. I'm going to turn off this. Maybe I will turn off my green screen quickly. Let's see, how do I do that? Filters. You know what I think I ought to do? I ought to take my red one apart.
I think that looks really cool, the transparent one.
The invisible pointer.
Yes.
So quickly undo a few screws that hold it together. Obviously the red one has a red LED in it, and the green one is going to have a green LED in it, so that when you're passing them out to multiple participants, you can tell whose pointer is pointing at what. So the lens, I learned quite a bit about lenses. At first I thought, what kind of lens can people order? Well, Google Cardboard is a project by Google for making a 3D viewer with your smartphone, and different people sell lenses to go with Google Cardboard kits. So I bought some of those, and they're horrible for focusing images. So I decided to go to the pros, Edmund Scientific, whose lenses are as good as any lenses out there. I went to their surplus clearance place, and there are some pretty good lenses, but I ordered a few, and they were all different thicknesses. They were all the focal length that they promised. That was good, but different thicknesses and even slightly different diameters, and they were a little bit expensive. So for making your own pointer, I thought, I can't trust Edmund's surplus lens collection, and who knows when they'll run out of a certain lens type in their surplus collection. So this is a loop from a project called the Private Eye, and one of these loops costs about $4.50, and you can push in and pop the lens out, and it's a really good lens. It's about the right focal length, it's about the right diameter. So this is the lens that anyone can order from the Private Eye project, and pop out the lens and have a pretty nice, it's an acrylic lens, but it's still pretty nice lens for the projecting your pointer. At the back end, there's that USB-C thing on a little power board that you can buy from a company called Adafruit or Adafruit. They sell really neat consumer electronics for the do-it-yourselfer. And they sell batteries to go with it. And this is a lithium-ion rechargeable battery that plugs right into the power board. So all that electronics work is done for you. The LED is just one bright LED. You have to choose one with a narrow angle, 12 degrees or less. I think you could get away with 15 degrees. I wanted to make a yellow one. All the yellow ones had too wide a beam for some reason. So I haven't made a yellow pointer yet, but I've made some good green, blue, white, and red ones. I learned a lot about the switch. Here's the first one I made, and it has this nice rocker switch that rocks one way to make it bright and the other way to make it dim. And it makes a nice satisfying click when you turn it on and off, except when you're wearing a lavalier microphone and your pointer goes click, you get a amplified click in your dome. And that was the first thing people who use this pointer said had to change. And I thought, if this is going to be the pointer that's perfect, it can't be an annoying click. So the newer version has a slide switch with 3 positions: off, dim, and bright. And then it all fits into this 3D printed case. Oh, there's a slot for the arrow cut out, and it can be positioned within a few millimeters of the slot to be closer to the lens or farther away from the lens, so that you can have it focus on a nearer surface or a farther surface. In any case, the range of distances it focuses is pretty broad. So you have to have a pretty small dome if you are going to choose to make it the close focus. I also discovered that the blue LED and the red LED, the focus has to be a little different because of dispersion in the lens. So you can adjust its position to help focus if it's different colors. And now this one's in pieces, but I put it together once, I can put it back together again. So this is the planetarium pointer, and I like it a lot. It was fun to build. It's a lot more trouble and a lot more expense than Jeff's $1.50 one. But once you've got it, it's pretty neat. And if you have a maker type person who you want to give a project to in your facility, this would be good. The model for the body I made with Tinkercad, and here I'm showing a Tinkercad window. It's a pretty easy program to use, and it lets you put shapes together, add shapes, subtract shapes, group shapes together. And that's how I designed the pointer. Tinkercad allows you to share your designs. And in the instructions, there's a link to this 3D model. And you can copy it into your own Tinkercad account, which you can set up for free and change the design, customize the design, or have fun with it. I had a lot of fun learning Tinkercad. I started out trying to learn Blender, which is also free, but Tinkercad was so much more user-friendly. There are a couple other things I developed along with this. Any questions or things you want to say about the PPA planetarium pointer before I show a couple other things?
I just had a quick question about the lens placement. Can you go into a little more detail about how people can adjust the lens if they really want like a really sharp image of their arrow or whatever?
All right, the lens is not movable, but the place where you put the arrow cutout is wide. So if you have a couple of washers here, one of them has the Star Trek logo cutout thing, and the other is just a washer. They're 9/16 inch across, which is a number 12 SAE washer, and it's also a 3/16 USS washer. If you have two of them, they fit in that slot together, and you can have the arrow on the back side of one washer, or on the front side, or in the middle. So you really have three different places you can have your washer a little more than 1 millimeter apart. If that's not fine enough an adjustment for you, you can cut cardstock and make spacers with that, so you can get fraction of 1 millimeter thing. But I've found getting it to the nearest 0.5 millimeter has worked really well for me. If you laser cut the washer, the arrow cutout, let me turn this off. Come on. Here we go. And I'll turn off the Tinkercad window. Have I disappeared from the screen?
Yes, you're gone.
I'm gone. Am I back?
You're back.
Oh, good. Back. This is an Adobe Illustrator file, and it has arrows here that you can cut with a laser, and it has washers too. So if you print it on thin, opaque black plastic, you get the arrow cut out, and you get spacers so that you can put those in front of or behind the arrow cutout inside the pointer to position it very precisely. And since it's an Illustrator file, if you don't like the arrow I've made, you can edit it and make your own arrow or crosshairs or V-shape or your own initials or a thumbs up or whatever you want.
I'm assuming you tried 3D printing the cutouts. What were the drawbacks of that, and why did you choose to go with a laser cutter?
I didn't try 3D printing the cutouts because the resolution of the 3D printers is perfectly adequate for the body of a pointer, but not sharp enough for a tiny little arrow.
Okay, that makes sense.
unless you have a really, really high-end laser 3D printer.
Right. Okay.
The 3D printers I used were in public libraries. I used two different ones, one that I could go to and they'd let me use it under guidance of staff person who happened to be my daughter. And the other one, they wouldn't let me use it, but they would take my file and print it for me. And that person liked the shiny, glossy plastic. I prefer the matte finish, but some of these are shiny, glossy because the person who was doing my printing preferred it.
You should be able to sandpaper that off to make it more matte.
Oh, maybe. All right. On to some other products. This is a pointer I made for use with our SOS at the Lawrence Hall of Science. The planetarium pointer is hammer shaped, like the handle of a hammer. And this pointer is meant to be tethered to the railing of an exhibit so that people who walk up to our Science on a Sphere can show each other what they're observing and talk about what they see. And it's made to be more like a garage remote control so that it's not pounded on the rail like a hammer. It's also got a momentary switch because a public access pointer can't be left on all day. But it's USB-C rechargeable like the other one. And so I'm going to get the plans for this one on the website eventually too. This is another product I made using some of the same electronics. If you look in the back, it's got the same lithium-ion battery, the same charging circuit from Adafruit, and it has two LEDs. These are orange that shine out over a clipboard so that if your participants have a star map they put here, they can flip this on and read it in the dark. Or if you're in a workshop where they're taking data about, say, the moons of Jupiter or anything else, they have a light up clipboard that works well. The switch is a regular hardware store light switch. And I made sure to choose this because anyone who sees it knows how to turn it on and off because it looks like a light switch. I've toyed with some other switches, like button switches that actually were illuminated so that they were the light source themselves. But then I pictured in the planetarium having to tell people how to turn the thing on and off. And so much easier to pass it to them and they know how to turn it on and off. Also, this switch is pretty quiet. I experimented with some small electric switches that go click, clack, click, clack. And I pictured handing these out to a class of students and they're all exploring with this novel bit of hardware and turning it on, click, clack, click, clack, and you get a room full of noise. So a nice quiet light switch here. I had an old design for this, which I built inside an electrical switch box and mounted the switch here, and it has some batteries here. And on the top is a plastic tube with LEDs jammed into the end to make a nice soft focus light source. And these work pretty well, but this one is more compact. And I'm hoping we can make a bunch of these for the planetarium at the Lawrence Hall. And there will be plans for this on the PPA website so that you can make a light up clipboard if you use that sort of thing in your planetarium. So those are two things I wanted to develop as long as I was learning how to 3D print things and learning how to use the electronics to make rechargeable light up things that are convenient to use. Oh,
Was it hard to take the clip off of the clipboards?
Not with a drill.
Okay.
Yeah, I call it a clipboard, but you can't put this thing on without taking off the clip. So it's a board, not a clipboard. Oh, and we're at 12 o'clock and a little bit more. so that's what I wanted to share with you all. And I'd like to hear any other discussion if people want to hang around and spend the time. Alan, you're master of ceremonies. How do you want to proceed?
Oh, yes. Well, we don't have any specific cutoff time. It's not necessarily 1 hour, but this would be a good time to, this has been a great presentation, John. We can continue with question and answer or sharing ideas, but let's take a moment to thank John. This has been a great, you can unmute and clap or do emojis or whatever, but that was a great presentation. Thank you, John.
All right.
You know, I
Maybe-
have a question
Yeah.
about the I have a question about the focus of the arrow on the dome. Depending on where people are in the planetarium, doesn't it go out of focus if you have a fixed focus device?
Not much. With a short focus lens, the range where it's in really good focus is big. The lens in the perfect planetarium pointer, which I fondly call it, is got a focal length of about 56 millimeters, which is way shorter than your throw distance. I found that if you focus it at infinity, it looks good down to say 7 or 8 feet. If you focus it at 8 to 10 feet, it looks good from 6 feet to infinity. But for short domes, I might focus it at 6 feet, and it'll look good from 3 feet to 12 feet. So you have to make that choice. And in the directions, there's a blurb about testing it before you screw it together.
What was the focal length you said of that lens?
Hard for me to measure, but about 55 or 56 millimeters. I would have preferred a slightly shorter one so that the focus is better over a longer range. But this was the lens that was the best quality and the most easily available for a decent price.
In the chat, Richard McColman wrote, for lenses, try a surplus shed. He put it's surplusshed.com is the website that would be worth looking at as a source.
Yeah, the lenses were the primary factor for me in terms of, because I remember when we had those Paul French pointers that we had made, right, Alan? And they were good. They were very good. But yeah, when I was down here and I wanted to make my own, I was like, where do I get the lenses? And so that's why I like the zoomable flashlights, because they come with their own lens already, and it's already mounted in there. And the tricky part of that is that if you get a high quality one, some of the lenses can't be taken out. Like, they make them purposely like that. So just make sure if you go my way, and make sure you buy one that can actually where you can actually remove the lens and actually work with the insides.
If you do find your own lens, then you might have to take the 3D model for the body of the pointer and edit it down, which is a satisfying thing to learn how to do and to do. Or you can do it the quick and dirty but very, very effective way of sawing off a piece of pipe and taping it onto a flashlight.
Yeah, and I really appreciate your point about the homemade being a selling point, where it doesn't look like something that came out of a factory. It looks like something you made because you did make it, and that being a draw for audience members of saying, "Oh, this is interesting. This is unique. This is something that I could do." That's something I I find a lot in terms of, when we used to do our physics workshops, right, John? If I made something that looked too good, that looked like something you would actually purchase, it wasn't as engaging for the students as if it looked like they could make it themselves.
Okay, Rosemary has a question in the chat. Do you want to say it, Rosemary, or should I read it?
Yeah, I'll just say it. I'm wondering about the laser cutting. That's not something many people have, I think. Did you find a place to access that?
I found two places. One of the libraries with a maker space I went to had a laser cutter that you could arrange to use. And also the Lawrence Hall of Science actually did most of my laser cutting for me. So that's a little bit cheating. But for 3D printing and laser cutting, you got to check around your area for maker spacers that might be in a library or a high school or a university. And laser cutters and 3D printers are two of the most popular tools.
Yep.
Sorry for being late. I got a question. Maybe you covered this already. For the electronics, you said it came from a company named Adafruit. Can you spell that?
ADAFRUIT.
Okay, just like it sounds.
Uh-huh. And if you look at the instructions on the PPA website, there are links to all the vendors where I bought parts from.
Let's see, on the website, let me check and see where, is it under mini grants?
Resources.
It's in resources? Okay.
I thought it was a resource. But you have to do the menu option.
Okay.
I haven't put a link on the resources landing page yet.
I see it. I'll just put that in the chat. Okay, it's in the chat.
The Google Drive says I need access, John.
Oh, that's
okay,
something.
Yeah,
that's
not something you need to do.
That's something Alan, I think, has to do. He gave me
Alan
access to it.
Well, I did not create that folder. The folders I created were in the mini grant. It was under mini grants.
All right. Well, I embedded it in that web page, and from my personal Google account, it's not showing up. This is the first time I've done that.
Well, it's something we'll fix.
So we need to figure that out.
So that URL may or may not work. But we'll fix it. Not in the next few minutes, though.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there other things to talk about with pointers? We actually could open it up to other discussions too, if anybody wants to. Anything pressing?
There was some discussion on Domel a while back. Alan Davenport had made a big deal about he uses a pointer that they created that projects a circle. And he said he much prefers that because then you don't have to worry about, well, what does the pointer mean? Does it indicate direction of, from one, across the dome or what have you? And it gets around that issue of that you have with a dot pointer where you've got this busy little thing circling around, as opposed to you just put the circle right over the star. or right around the star, I guess I should say. I don't know if anybody has explored that anymore.
That's an interesting idea, but I sometimes point to the edges of things, in which case a circle wouldn't serve me. And I like the Starfleet one, because it's actually like even more than a symmetrical one, especially if you make it like a more of a triangle and it's hard to tell which point you're actually using. For the Starfleet one, I found that people don't have any trouble like finding out, oh, this is the actual point, because it's asymmetrical, right? So there is one point that is actually more obviously the one that I'm using. And I always just end up using it as an arrow, as a motion arrow, just to make sure that people know this is the thing that I'm pointing to. There are motions that you can do to make it more obvious to people that which end of the triangle you're using.
Yeah.
I made a laser cutout once with 4 arrows pointing to a central place, for pointing to dot-like things in the sky. And that was pretty cool. When I revised the design, that particular cutout didn't fit anymore. So I can't demonstrate it to you now, but that's another option, is a few arrows pointing to the middle of something. And there's no reason you couldn't do a circle too, except if it's a cutout thing, kind of obvious, the middle will fall out. So maybe you need a piece of plastic that you can put a dot and a circle around.
Actually, some of the some reticles have a circle with a crosshair, but the exact middle is missing. So, in fact, that's a useful thing if you're, at a finder for a telescope, is to have that sort of reticle to find the object you're looking at. But I don't know. That's getting tricky. I'm not sure it'd be worth going to any trouble with that. Some of the digital systems, though, have like digital pointers that are kind of like that, aren't they?
I mean, they all have markers that you can
Yeah.
put around things in the sky. So
That's what I mean.
and you can
markers.
make that. Yeah, you can make whatever marker you want in the sky. But
Yeah.
in terms of a physical pointer, I'll give you the most common example. When I'm pointing at like the terminator of a quarter moon, like I don't really want a circle, and I don't really want like the 4 arrows pointing in. I just want one arrow to kind of like trace along the edge of the terminator of the moon, and just to point out the details in there. And if I needed to, say, circle something with a physical pointer, I would make sure the arrow is always pointed to the center as I circle it. So I don't actually just go in a circle like this. I actually turn my arrow so that the center is, it just twists my wrists a little bit. It takes a little wrist action. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm gonna
right?
practice that. See how it works.
I mean, most of the time it just ends up being like a 3/4 circle, so I don't have to literally twist the flashlight in my hand. But yeah, if I needed to highlight or circle something, that's how I do it with my one arrow.
Add that to pointer techniques.
And you need to have a fully 360-degree wrist with the
like a action figure.
Yeah. I want one of those.
But yeah, great job, John. It's really amazing what you've done.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to using the clipboards. Actually, this is something that we've at Lawrence Hall of Science. We started using clipboards when we went to a somewhat larger dome than our little tiny dome we had a 20-foot dome where we could shine orange
Reading
lights downward from the cove. But then when we went to a bigger dome, with that was no good for the people who were sitting not near the edge of the dome. So that's a really nice thing to have. Having it rechargeable with USB-C, that's pretty slick.
Pretty slick. Yeah. The old ones worked pretty well, but changing the batteries was a pain. And occasionally you take out a battery that's done what batteries do, go off. And then you have a chemical mess inside. Well, Alan,
I think we're almost ready to sign off here, huh?
yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks everybody for coming, those who are left, and we'll see you again next month. I should check and see what we're having next month. Let's see. Online seminars, the seminar schedule. Next month we have Andy Creech, Teaching in Italy and the Lessons I Learned, is our November. So that, make sure to come back for that. And I'll send out notices of that pretty soon. Okay, thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Great to see everybody. Bye.
Bye. I'll just fade out.